I'm Dina, and today I'm going to be doing a soft-spoken video. I get told a lot that my videos are really quiet, and although I do prefer whisper videos, I'm going to try soft-spoken and see, maybe it'll turn out to be like a whisper for normal people. So, this is an educational ASMR, part of my educational ASMR series. This is just where I talk about something which I find really interesting, and maybe you'll learn from it, or maybe it'll bore you enough for you to fall asleep. So, let's get started. Also, I'd like to apologize for the white noise. I lost my thingy for that puts this into my iPhone, and my ear pods. I lost the case for that, so it's been a hard day. So there's some right here. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about behavioral economics. Now, behavioral economics is a field that studies both the psychological aspects and economic aspects of life put together. So it finds the cognitive biases that we have within our everyday lives. Well, not everyday lives, but a lot of the time. I personally find it super fascinating because I can see it happen to me a lot. I can see when I have participated in an irrational way. So basically the idea is economic thinking drives from the idea that people will act rationally, and those who don't, the rationality will balance out in the market. Both my parents are highly acclaimed economists. They have worked in the field for years, and they think like economists. They are completely economic thinking. Very rational when it comes to certain things. I think rational when it comes to money, rational when it comes to how we spend our time, and I love economics. It was definitely one of the things that I really liked studying in high school, and I did some classes in university. However, I noticed it was missing this sort of personal touch to it. So when I discovered the field of behavioral economics, which is a generally new field, it was, again, I got interrupted by my father, an economist. So, behavioral economics, the study of behavioral economics, I think it started in the early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken, by that Richard Thaler, oh, how do I say his name? He got a Nobel Prize. And in the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. So that's where it started, and his story is quite interesting. I listened to it on NPR's Planet Money. There's a podcast, and I will have it down below if you want to listen to that podcast. It's really good, and it talks a lot about behavioral economics and how it started, and after I listened to that, actually I got more into it. So I definitely recommend that podcast if you're interested in what I'm about to say. Yeah, so let's get started. Oh, also, I do study psychology, and just the behavioral manners, it's all come really together. So I'm going to give some examples of ways that we behave irrationally. And I do use examples from Ariely, what's his name? From his book Predictably, Irrational, which I'll also link down below. So yeah, let's get started. The first thing I would like to talk about is the sunk cost fallacy. This is my favorite because it is one that we have fallen into over and over again. And it is one that once you notice you're doing it, you get really frustrated with yourself, but you for some reason can't stop. So, have you ever sat through a movie? Say you're at a movie theater. You pay for $13 for a ticket. Maybe you're on a date. You both pay $13. You pay for a date. I don't know. Whatever. You paid for a ticket. You you get to the movie, you sit down. 30 minutes into the movie, you realize this is shit. It's shit. And guess what? The movie is 3 hours long. What do you do? Now, a lot of people choose to stay in that movie theater, stay and suffer through a horrible movie just because they paid those $13. Now, that is a part of the sunk cost theory. That $13 is paid for whether or not you finish that movie. The thing that you are giving up in order to watch that movie is your time. Time is the most valuable asset that we have. So, therefore, that is a part of the sunk cost fallacy. And something I have definitely learned growing up with parents that are economists is that my parents would never, ever, ever tell me that I need to finish my food on my plate. That was something they never said. And not because of the eating reasons, but because it doesn't matter if that food goes to waste in their heads. To them, that food will either go to the trash or in my mouth. It doesn't really make a difference. And if I'm full, then I suffer through being more full and not even enjoying the meal itself. So another part of the sunk cost fallacy is when you're at a restaurant and you force yourself to finish your food because you've already paid for it. That's not how it should be. That's not what we should be doing. So starting movies and all that. But one that I find very interesting and one that I've noticed people definitely fall into this one a lot, and it ends up costing them more money. So say for example, you have your honeymoon planned and you're going to go to, I'm fucking Hawaii, whatever. You're gonna go to Hawaii. Say that ticket cost you $1,500, return non-refundable. Okay, so you have a non-refundable ticket. So get it. So non-refundable, non-flexible ticket. You can't change it, whatever. Your wife leaves you for someone else. I don't know. She leaves you. She does not like you anymore. That ticket is in your name. It's in your hands. And you could still go on that honeymoon. But you don't want to because it would remind you too much of your bitch of a fiance. Choosing to go on the trip because you paid for it is participating in the sunk cost fallacy. And I noticed this with a lot of people, maybe not in those type of extreme cases. So say, for example, you bought a ticket to see a play, and then on that night, or a concert, and then on that night you don't feel like going. You shouldn't say, oh, well, I paid, so I better go make the most of it. No, it's a sunk cost. You've paid for that whether or not you're there. Now, the same with the honeymoon, the same with the concert tickets, same with the opera tickets, or whatever. With the honeymoon, so say you force yourself to go on the flight because it's already paid for, and your hotel is already paid for, whatever. But then you get there, and there are more expenses because you're traveling. You have to pay for your food, you have to pay for your transport, you have to pay for transport within, you have to pay for activities to do. So you are spending more money on something that you didn't want to do just because you didn't want to lose that money that was already lost. We don't consider that a loss in economics, but a lot of people do. And it's just one of those things that you will notice in your everyday life. Sometimes things come at us like a sunk cost, and in more businessy terms, it's sort of like starting a project. So say a company starts building new infrastructure and they see that it's not going well. A good business would just cancel the project. Just because you've paid money to start something doesn't mean you need to pay more money to fix it, keep going. It's a waste of time, research, and energy. So I try really hard not to think about the sunk cost fallacy in my own life, and in ways that I could improve my well-being through it. I know that might sound a little weird, but once you notice it, it really digs at you how much people participate in the sunk cost fallacy. The next one I would like to talk about is, it starts with a bit of a story. I'm not too sure what this is really called, but it's kind of like when we put a price on something that we don't. So I'll just tell you the story. And I don't know the name. So if you know the name of this fallacy, like let me know, or if there's a name, I don't know if there's specific names for this. It's just something I noticed a lot in theme parks. So me and my boyfriend went to Gardaland. It is this theme park in Italy, and it is fun. I went there with him, his little 13-year-old brother, and no, it was 14-year-old brother, and his 14-year-old brother's 13-year-old girlfriend. That was fun. That was a lot of making out that I did not need to see. But regardless, there were these games, and you know those games at theme parks, which, like, you know, you have a basketball, and you have to shoot it through some hoop, and you have to pay like £3 or $3 or €3, whatever, to, I don't know, have 2 tries to get it through that hoop. And if you do, you win maybe like a big puppy stuffed animal, like a big ass stuffed animal. And all you want is that stupid stuffed animal. So obviously these games are impossible. They're so difficult. The cheaper the game is, actually, the more difficult it is, as you will probably see. And you get so frustrated as you're playing it. So before you know it, you are playing, maybe you give yourself 2 or 3 rounds, and you've already spent, let's say, €10 to get a big puppy stuffed animal. And so you don't even win then, but say you win after spending, I don't know, €15. No part of me won any of those games, by the way, but it made me think, because I was playing these kind of games, spending a lot of money, realizing after, if I saw that exact same stuffed animal in a store for that price, for even $10 or $5, I wouldn't buy it. And if I was in a regular day walking around and I see a big stuffed animal, I'm not gonna buy it. It's not gonna be something that I want, but I wanted to win it. The price seemed so different, because when you win something, it feels so much better. So that is something that I think is really interesting, because I definitely saw that with myself. We stayed, my boyfriend and I spent the night at the theme park. It's hilarious, by the way. Spent the night at the theme park. The parents look so depressed at the hotel. Wow. Anyways, but yeah, I noticed that we were doing that, and especially like there's this like duck game where you like pick ducks up from the water, and there's a number on them, and it depends what number you get, what toy you get. We played that like bitches, and I was getting prizes that I didn't care about. So when I realized that I was doing this, and Alessio, my boyfriend, was doing this too, there was this one game where you have those balls, and you throw the balls. I'm sorry about that. That's my. I hope that doesn't bother you too much. So you have these balls, and with the balls, you like these heavy weights, and you have to throw them. And then there's like these cans, like in a pyramid, like 1, and you have like 2 tries to get them all down. And if you do it, you win this like medium-sized alpaca stuffed animal. Alessio played it a few times, convinced that he could have won. He could have won. He was so close. He was so close. You're always so close. So I told him, let's go somewhere else. I snuck into the gift store, bought a miniature version of that alpaca for €6, and I gave it to him. And I told him I won it, obviously. He didn't believe me, but yeah, it was just that kind of thing. Like, would I pay for this? Or like, why am I playing these games? And I guess the fun is about playing the games, but I just think it's really interesting how the value of something changes depending on your atmosphere. So another sunk cost fallacy I wanted to talk about was, well, a pattern or behavior that we have that's irrational is the overwhelming of options. So, say you're at a restaurant and there's a huge menu. I actually have a story with this. I was on a date with my ex, and it was his first time in the States, and we went to the Cheesecake Factory. I Cheesecake Factory. They have good food, and I like the place, and yeah, okay. So we get there, and so they're known to have one of the largest menus a chain has. They have, you know, big, thick menu full of options, full of different stuff. He gets there, he sits down, and he's just like, this is too many options. It's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I would rather have a menu with one option than all of these. He was freaking out. He didn't like how many options there were. But an rational behavior would suggest that the consumer would have more advantage having more options. If we have more options, we are able to make more informed decisions. So I'm not saying the Cheesecake Factory here is the gold mine of making informed decisions about what you should eat. But what I'm saying is that you'll be able to look at, you can compare more things, you have more information. The more information a consumer has, the better it is for the consumer. But when we get given too many options, we start getting confused. And we start, kind of getting a little anxious about it. I can kind of think about it this way. Have you ever had a friend and you wanting to watch Netflix together, and it just takes so long to find a movie because there's so many options, and you just want to see, oh, okay, we'll keep this in mind. Let's see what else there is. If you're on a plane and there's a movie with like 20 options, pretty easy to pick one. You're not going to be like, oh, I'll keep it in mind. So having less options is a part of behavioral economics, because we should want as many options as possible according to rational economic thinking. So another thing I want to talk about is loss aversion. So loss aversion refers to people being more afraid of losing something than they feel worse when they lose something than if they gain something, and then better if they gain something, if that makes sense. So, for example, I think this was in DC when they started rolling this out. I might be mistaken, but I think it was in DC. The plastic bags, the horrible plastic bags. What would we do? A lot of places now, as you know, charge, let's say 5 cents. I don't know, 55, no, like, or 5p, whatever. They charge a certain amount of money for each plastic bag that you use. However, when this idea was first implemented, when grocery stores started wanting to implement more use of reusable bags, they figured out that one of the first solutions that they wanted to do was to say that for each bag that you bring in, we will take 5 cents off your purchase. So if I went to go buy a bottle of Coke for $1 and I didn't use the bag, the Coke would be 95 cents. That went nowhere. It went absolutely nowhere. And I'm not just saying because it's 5 cents. It's just saying that it doesn't feel like a loss. Then when they turned it around and said, oh, we're going to charge you 5 cents for every bag that you use, that worked a lot better, because people rather lose than gain. It feels worse. Sort of like, imagine you're walking on the street and you find $5. You're going to be pretty happy about that $5. Like, cool, $5. But if you lost $5, you'd feel much worse than the happiness that you would get from finding it. And I find loss aversion to be also very interesting. It's just in the way that our society works. I saw another podcast on NPR, and maybe I'll also link it down below. Like, I need to just write a note of that. The dating. So this episode talked about, it was an economist giving advice on dating, and people would call in asking for advice, dating advice with an economist, and see how he answered. And it was super interesting. I definitely recommend that too. I'll leave it down below now that I wrote that down on paper. One guy called saying that he's afraid to ask someone out for prom, and the economist said you should ask her out. I mean, you have nothing to lose. At this point, you have nothing. The worst that's going to happen is that you end up in the same position or you gain something, but it does feel like a loss, but it's a loss of something that you've never had. So that is a part of loss aversion. And I will also, now I'm going to talk about the endowment effect. And this is when people put more value into things that they own sentimentally. Now, I don't know if this is necessarily the same as what I'm about to say, but I think, for example, in David Ariely, in his book, Predictably and Irrational, he talks about how there was this test that he did where, so there's this like huge ass football game, and tickets in college, just a college football game, whatever, and basically tickets were scarce, so they gave them away to a couple of winners. Some people got them, some people didn't, and people that got them were pretty happy. And so what he did, he called the people that didn't get the tickets, people that wanted tickets didn't get the tickets, and asked them how much they are willing to pay to receive a ticket, because the tickets were free. It's a college event. So the average price that the people said that they were willing to pay was $150 per ticket. Then when he called the people that had the tickets, even though they got those tickets for free, they said that they would only be willing to sell it for, I think the average was $1,500, like a lot more, maybe even $2,000. Point is, the demand and the supply in that type of market didn't make sense. These people, they got it for free, and they are valuing it way higher than market value, because then you could say at market value, those tickets cost $150 on average. But because there's some sort of sentimental value of seeing the game and winning it, then you don't want to lose that. Another thing I want to talk about, I don't think this is the endowment effect necessarily. I don't know what this is called, but it's also an example from my life. Alessio, my boyfriend's dad, he collects a lot of old trinkets here and there, and he gave me a lighter, and this lighter was worth $700, probably $500 on eBay, I don't know. And I was saying to Alessio, what do we do? Like, I don't really want this. I don't need this. Would it be awful if I sold it? And he said, yeah. And I'm like, but would you pay $700 for this lighter? I would have never paid $700 for this lighter. But it's not about that. It's the fact that it was given to you. Obviously, I'm not selling it, and I really do appreciate it, and I do think it's really cool. But I wouldn't pay $700 for that lighter. But I'm choosing not to sell it because it has some sort of sentimental value to me. Sort of like in the beginning of the podcast that I linked down below. It was Richard Thaler. That's his name, right? He talks about how his economist professor in economics, how he has a wine collection with wines that are worth hundreds of dollars over the year. He's a wine collector, but he had a rule to never buy a bottle of wine for over $30. And this doesn't make sense to Richard, because if you would never pay $30 for a bottle of wine, but you're drinking your wine that's worth $100, you're kind of buying a $100 wine, aren't you? Because you are not selling it. I think that's really interesting. Would you buy it for that much versus if you already have it, would you sell it? And the last thing I want to talk about is the price of free. There's a lot to say about this, but I'm not going to go on for too long. The price of free. It's kind of also the same with sales, I think. So say you want to buy a pair of socks, just one pair of socks, and you get to that store and it says, buy 2 pairs, get the 3rd one free. You're going to buy 2 pairs of socks, aren't you? So you can get the 3rd one for free. You think you're getting a deal. You went in there saying to spend, I don't know how much socks cost, $3. You end up spending $6. So you went in there and you ended up spending more money. That is the cost of free. You were supposed to pay $6 and you ended up paying, no, you're supposed to pay $3 for a pair of socks, but you ended up paying $6 because you thought that was a great deal. They tricked you. This is true for a lot of services, a lot of things. If you buy this, so you get an extra this. So for example, one thing I noticed, when I was growing up in London, I had a phone with the contract Orange, and they had this deal called Orange Wednesdays. If you remember Orange Wednesdays, please post it in the comments. Unless you are too tired. But I just remember that. So it was basically Orange Wednesdays were 2-for-1 cinema tickets. And people would go to the cinema on days that they didn't want to go to the cinema because they had 2-for-1 tickets. So you end up paying £7 that you didn't want to pay. But say you split it with your friends, so it's £3. It's not expensive, but still. You end up paying money you didn't want to pay just because there's a 2-for-1 offer. That's kind of how happy hour became a thing, isn't it? We're kind of used to paying a high price for alcohol at bars, well, higher than what we would get at home or what we drink at home. And then there's a 2-for-1 offer, so on happy hour. So instead of going home, you might go to a bar and end up spending money at a bar that you didn't want to go to really in the first place, or they didn't really plan on going to, because there's an offer for a free drink, for free drinks if you buy 1 drink. So free does end up costing you a little bit of money, doesn't it? Sometimes it does. Okay, so I think I'm gonna wrap. That was my cat sneezing. I think I'm gonna wrap this up. Let me know if you like the video, if you like the soft spoken, if I should